My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die.
Potty, she talking naughty. Here to help your trouble, she don't judge nobody. Even if you're not at your top and it's a lie, she try to make you see a different train of thought.
Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, fellow gurus. My name is Geeta and I am a therapist and a transformational life coach. I am the Pottymouth Guru and I am here to help you learn how to unfuck yourself. If you are digging on what you're seeing today, please hit that like button, especially subscribe to my channel. And if you think that this is useful information, please forward it to somebody that you think might benefit from it. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Today's video is about performance anxiety. That's right, performance anxiety, and I'm talking about all sorts of different types of performance anxiety. I mean, there is a fucking plethora of shit that causes a fight or flight response inside of our nervous systems. This is a widely experienced struggle across the board, so many things. Everything from presenting at meetings, stage fright, athletic performance, sexual performance, public speaking. I mean, the struggle is motherfucking real. Today, we're going to be looking at this from the lens of performing on stage mostly, because that is my background and something that I've experienced so much shit with. I've been dealing with this the majority of my motherfucking life, and it has been debilitating to say the least. I have learned a lot, and I would love to share some of the shit that I have learned with you. What we're going to be covering today. We're going to look at what it is, why it happens, how does it work, ground zero stuff, how it activates our ants, as in automatic negative thoughts. And we're going to be looking at a way to deal with it that isn't talked about very often at all. That I think is the most important thing to discuss when it comes to performance anxiety. So what is it? I know how much viewers love lists. So I promise you that this video is filled with so many lists. I mean, like all the lists. All the lists of time. So definition time. Performance anxiety as per the Psychology Dictionary. Anxiety correlated with the apprehension and fear of the consequences of not being capable of performing a job or of performing it to a degree which will generate expectations of even greater degrees of performance success. The PMG definition is the soul-crushing deer in headlights, unadulterated fear filled with irrational scenarios of catastrophic level failures that will result in the loss of career, partner, friends, house, and ultimately your life. Some questions to ask yourself. 1. Have you ever felt beads of sweat form on your forehead or above your lip when you're going around in a circle in class to give an answer and it's coming up to your turn? 2. Have you ever had the shits before giving a quarterly report to your team in a presentation? 3. Have you ever drank an entire bottle of Pepto-Bismol so that you don't vomit before a show? 4. Have you ever imagined yourself running out of an auditorium before publicly speaking, only to pack up your entire fucking life and escape to an isolated off-the-grid cabin in the woods for the rest of your whole fucking life? If you have felt any of these sensations or anything remotely close to these scenarios, then you have experienced performance anxiety. I'm really sorry that you have, because I know firsthand how much it fucking blows. We collectively have felt that mortifying fear of choking under pressure. Really, what it is that you remembered the feeling of that time that it actually already happened. When you did choke under pressure. And you're fucking terrified that it's gonna happen again. Causing it to happen again in that moment. Examples. 1. Like that time that you studied for that test for like fucking weeks and you had a really good night's sleep before getting up in the morning for that fucking test. And then when you started writing the test, you drew blank after blank after blank, and then it was just about, can you pass this test? 2. Or that time that you forgot the one lyrical line in that song and then sang on nonsensical words for the rest of the whole fucking song, like a self-esteem blasting domino effect, while silently calling out to your higher power to bring you to an early death. 3. I mean, the worst is when your buddy puts you the basketball, but then you like fall and slip on the ice and totally don't even score that touchdown. Never mind, I don't sports. You get the idea. I'd also like to say that my husband taught me everything I know. So very oftentimes having this level of stress and fight or flight happening in the body actually fucking causes that worst fear to come true in that moment. The other thing that happens is that we start to believe the things that we're thinking and that they're absolutely the truth, even though they're totally 100% total fucking crazy ass lies. And the fear is that these worst fears are actually going to come true, even though they are not. You stumbled on your words in that meeting. Oh, you're fired. Oh no. So like, upon further thinking about it, I just like realized after you dropped the ball that I'm not really like that into you anymore. Seriously? And I can do way better. Fuck. So I'm breaking up with you. You didn't say that one line of dialogue with enough emotion. Oh, fuck. The audience totally registered that. Fuck. And now you will never work in this town again. This is my worst fucking nightmare. And even though they're totally irrational, I mean, fear in and of itself is irrational, and we knew this, it doesn't actually stop the irrational thoughts from wreaking total fucking havoc on our nervous systems and causing some really uncomfortable shit to take over your body. When the thoughts and feelings might not even actually be super conscious. We might be so like unaware and unconnected to our bodies, like total ostrich heads in the sand kind of a deal. Maybe there's so much intellectual heady kind of bypass that we can't even feel these scenarios at all. But the way that it shows is that we get really super stiff on stage or publicly speaking or whatever the fuck we're doing. Maybe we never actually perform to the level that we do when we're practicing. And we have no idea fucking why. Maybe we don't even remember what even fucking happens on stage because there is such a disconnect. Maybe we dissociate to that extent, maybe. So, what is it exactly that happens in the brain when this shit is happening? So we have this totally awesome stress response system. It's like a team of superheroes led by the brain to combat stress when there are difficult and life-threatening situations. So this is a very complex, lengthy process. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of exactly what is going on. Starting in the amygdala, this tiny little fear center in the brain, that's what detects our fear. A signal gets sent to and wakes up the hypothalamus, which then sends a signal to the pituitary gland and wakes up that motherfucker, who then sends a signal and wakes up the adrenal glands. So, short form, the HPA Axis. Then the pituitary gland tells the adrenal gland to release cortisol, and cortisol travels through our blood like a messenger and tells all the other parts of the body to react to the stress. Talks to all these different organs, for example, like the digestive system and the heart. And the cortisol helps our brain think better and more clearly. Like, for example, it sends energy to important muscles in our body. It increases our heart rate and our breathing. So basically, everything that you need if you were to encounter a cougar in the fucking forest when you're picking berries. So the things that you can experience in your body when this crazy shit show is happening inside of it: excessive sweating, heart palpitations, chills, high blood pressure, knots in your tummy, shaky voice, nausea, the flight part of fight or flight, like wanting to like bail from your show. For example, the first show that I did, after 7 years of not performing. I don't fucking know. And 5 minutes before I went on, I was like, fuck this. I'm not going to this show. I'm going to go home. Everyone's going to be really mad at me, but it's going to blow over. It's going to be okay. I'm just going to go hide under my blankets until it blows over. Yeah, I didn't do that, but I really wanted to. Why does this happen? It can happen for many reasons, but ultimately it boils down to this. It's a fear of failure or success or shame or humiliation, all of the above, that the bad experience will reveal that our worst fears about ourselves are true, that we're not good enough, that we're not lovable or even likable, that we are leavable and abandonable because we're not perfect. Ultimately, it's problematic thinking. They're cognitive distortions, the automatic negative thoughts, ants, the subconscious software that's always running in the background, chirping at you and throwing spokes in your fucking wheel. See my 2 videos about ants. The links will post up above as this video goes on. Here are some examples of cognitive distortion in the form of ants to do with performance. 1, all or nothing thinking. If my performance isn't perfect, then I'm a failure. 2, jumping to negative mind-reading conclusions. The audience didn't laugh as much as usual. They must have thought that I totally suck. 3, negative filtering. My mistake ruined my performance, and that's all anyone's gonna remember, even though I totes nailed the rest of it. 4, dismissing the positive. I nailed that high note, but that's only because I was hydrated enough, the room was humid enough, I took a really good breath, and Mercury was in the 4th degree of Virgo, completing the grand trine. I'm definitely gonna fuck it up tomorrow and every other performance I ever do with that note, ever. Number 5, overgeneralization. I had a shit performance tonight. I've always sucked and I will always suck. And you know what? We have like a team of ants that live on the inside of us that work as a tag team before we become aware and unpack and repack the shit in a better way. And they work in a triad: the inner critic, the inner perfectionist, and the inner judge. Here is an example of how this voice might work. An example of an inner critic. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming out. I really appreciate all your love and support. Have a good night. Okay, that was a good show. I feel good about that. It was shit. What do you mean? I thought it was a good show. I feel really accomplished right now. You made mistakes. Okay, but like, mistakes are normal. Actually, mistakes mean that you're just not like good enough. Well, overall it was good. Overall, you were out of tune. It's just that one note. No, actually, do you remember the second note where you were like a 7th off the center of the tone? I mean, like, what's Brad gonna think? And you're so not gonna get that gig because of that? Like, really, who do you think you are? Oh my God. And really, at the end of the day, you're just gonna end up alone. Fuck. You're never gonna get Brad's dick. You're never gonna get that job. Ugh. And you're gonna end up alone, just like how I always said that you were. So now we can definitely look at the symptomology of all this and how to address all of the symptoms. And it's really important to develop these skill sets as healthily functioning human beings. But that's not where we should stop. We need to get to the root cause, reframe and heal that shit so that we're not always spending all of our time and energy managing our symptoms. This is more like prevention, like for example, like drinking a fuckload of water to prevent the headache rather than taking an Advil after you already have the headache. And this piece doesn't really get talked about enough as far as I'm concerned. Now, to do this, we have to get to the ground zero of the painful spot. So what I mean by that is, when is the first time you ever experienced this feeling? When is the first time that you felt shame or humiliation when performing a task? When is the first time you remember making a mistake when performing a task and feeling the negative repercussions of that? So I used to have a completely crippling fear of being on stage, even though I have been performing all of my life. And I left this profession for a long time because I simply didn't have the self-esteem or emotional health to be able to continue to go forward with it. And when I got to Newfoundland, which was 4 years ago, I got thrown into this profession again, which has been a huge blessing and that I'm really, really grateful about. And I really didn't experience crippling stage fright until I came up to a one-off show, which performers know takes fucking years off your damn life. And I experienced such crippling stage fright and terror that it affected my performance. And then I had another one-off show coming up a few weeks later and I didn't know how I was going to handle it. So I jumped right into therapy and I discovered my ground zero. And with discovering this ground zero, the first time that I was really shamed in this kind of an environment, this is where all that crazy shit was born, and that's what was propelling my crippling fear. And I didn't want to live with it anymore. It hadn't showed its face in a long time, so I went to therapy. I unpacked it. I discovered it. I reframed it. I did a whole bunch of work on it, and I came out of that situation feeling really differently about everything. And although I did have some stage fright coming into this next show, it wasn't even close to being that level of crippling fear as before. And that's only one time of working on it. So I now know with full confidence that continuing to do some of this work, I can eliminate the irrational parts of fear. Like, we still want to be nervous and excited going on stage. That adrenaline is still going to pump. We don't want to eliminate that totally. But the kind that is like really unhealthy and fucks you up and affects your show and affects your mental health in a really negative way, we don't want that. It's not good. To see the full story, please see my video. So, there is an equation to this. Really, it's a list. It's not an equation, but I just want it to sound fancy. Here is the list of the things that we need to do to really work on this ground zero. 1, find the ground zero. 2, become aware of the feelings that get triggered based on the information gathered around the ground zero. So for example, it could be shame or frustration or anger. 3, unpack and release some of those difficult feelings. You're gonna do this by talking about it, journaling about it, maybe doing some creative shit like writing some poetry or music, drawing, painting, that kind of thing. 4, reframe the scenario. Change narrative. Write out the story of the shit that you're telling yourself all about it, and then rewrite the story of exactly what you want it to sound like for realsies and be like for realsies. 5, work on tending to that part of you that gets really fucking anxious. Being there for yourself with kindness and patience and empathy and love. 6, start practicing that reframe with languaging that serves you better. Final thoughts. Ultimately, we create our performance anxiety. Unconsciously. We don't mean to, but we do. But we can become conscious. We aren't victims of a mysterious force or something that happens to us due to the environment or audience or pressure, etc. Rather, it's our perception of the environment and our thoughts about the outcome and consequences that cause us to create an anxious state in our body and our mind that shows up like performance anxiety symptoms. Boom, mic drop. Okay, that's a good start on performance anxiety. Please join me next week when we're going to be discussing some applicable tactics to manage the symptoms of performance anxiety and dive into some of the research strategies. And I'll speak a little bit more about my own anecdotal experiences, what's worked for me and what hasn't. And there might actually be a surprise next week. Maybe a surprise guest. Maybe. Stay tuned. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning into my video. If you like what you see, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, click on that little bell thingy so you get notifications when my videos come out, and share this shit with someone that you think it might benefit. And I really look forward to talking more about this with you guys next week, my sweet gurus. Peace out to the motherfucker. Bye.